Hello everyone, this is Margarita from CityGal Papeterie. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. In today's video, I want to continue the ideas for using acetate in our cards. For this first example, I'm going to be using these two star dies. They are from a nesting die set, so I have different sizes of them. I have a bigger one and a smaller one here that I'm going to use to create not only the hole for my cardstock where I'm going to be displaying my contents for the shaker card, but also for the frame. So I'm using the smaller one and the bigger one together to make a frame, and I'll show you that in just a moment. I'm going to start by creating the first cut with the smaller star. As soon as I cut down my cardstock to the right size, and I am cutting it down to 5 by 3 3/4, I think. Yeah, so I have a nice white border around the edges, and then I'm gonna cut this gold paper down to 5 1/4 by 4, and this is going to go behind my pattern paper to add another frame, a mat to my pattern paper. I usually would cut out the center so that I could use it in another project, but I didn't do that for this one. I do leave the entire mat intact. So I've gone ahead and cut out my star shape, and that's going to be the window. This would it's technically called a window shaker. And now, using another piece of gold paper, I'm going to tape down my larger star with my smaller star inside of it, making sure that it is all nice and even. And then I tape it down and run it through my die cutting machine. And this is going to create a frame that I'm going to use on the outside of my pattern paper to frame the shaker window. I'm then going to grab this other pattern paper with polka dots, and this is going to be the background for my window. So we've got the background and then the frame for the window, and then our mat, and that'll all go on top of the card base. So now I grab my piece of acetate, and I'm going to trim that down so that it will fit right behind my window piece of pattern paper. And I'm going to add adhesive. I'm using double-sided tape on my pattern paper with the window cut out. And then I'm going to line that onto the acetate, or I'm lining the acetate to the window sheet. I had to cut it almost to the same exact size because the points of the star actually come very close to the edge of the paper. Then I have these thin strips of foam tape. I forget where I got these. They're actually twice the size. I cut them down the middle so I could store them better. But yeah, I'm going to be using these to create the well for my window shaker. I removed both sides of the release paper to make my foam tape flexible, and this way I can just stick it around the shape without having to cut too many pieces. And for a shaker card, you want to make sure that you remove the static and some of the stickiness from the sides of your foam tape. I did add foam tape to the rest of the back of that panel, and now I'm going to add my contents. So I'm adding some sequins that coordinate with the colors that I've used for my card. I've already removed my backing paper so that it's easier and quicker to add to my card. I'm just spreading them out a little bit so they're not in a little mountain in the center, which can make sticking it down to my mat harder. And now I'm gonna bring my background to the panel. Obviously I'm not gonna do it the other way, because otherwise I will be pouring all my contents out. And once that's nicely placed, I can add some double-sided tape to the back of that panel. Just cleaning up my mess here. And now I'll be gluing that top panel to the gold paper. And once that is complete, I'm going to add that entire panel to the card base. And once again, I'm using double-sided tape, removing that release paper, and then just adhering it right onto the card base. Once that's complete, I'm going to glue my star frame, and then I've cut these other small elements from a paper pad that I had in my stash. I'm going to be using my silicone glue to adhere my frame. And just making sure that it's all lined up properly. I think this would make a great card for a teen or a youngster. I love the shaker element, and I mean, I think it's good for anybody, but I think the youngsters would enjoy shaking the card quite a bit. I know my kids would. I cut some fishtail shapes onto this small sentiment. So it looks more like a little ribbon banner. And then I cut this out of that pattern paper from a pad that I have. It's like a birthday themed paper pad. And I'm going to add that to the front of my card. I also used the silicone glue for that. And then for my little sentiment, I'm going to stick it down with double-sided foam tape, and that'll give it some dimension. Alright, and that's like the most basic type of shaker card that I can think of. I think this is pretty standard for shaker cards. You can definitely find lots of examples online and lots of other videos that use this technique. For the next one, I'm going to be using a fuse paper or fuse plastic sheets and my fuse tool. These are the sheets that I'm going to be using, and that's because I want to fuse some pockets into this. I have cut a piece of paper down to the size of an A2 card. I will put the measurements right on the screen here. And then I've cut another piece that is the size of a normal card pattern, card mat to add on top. And that's going to be the pocket. I'm going to start decorating the front of my plastic card using this tag. It's easier to decorate the front without having fused it together yet. This is the pattern paper that I'm using for these cutouts. I stick down my tag with using some double-sided tape. And I'm gonna center that on my card front at an angle. And that's what it looks like so far. My fuse tool has been warming up this entire time. This is the back part. I will be covering that with another tag that I've trimmed out to be a little bit bigger than the other tag. I did use the original tag as a guide to cut another piece of pattern paper, just a little bigger, so it has a frame around it, so you can see. Now this piece is also going to serve as a pocket that you can use to add some money or a gift card. You can slip it right in there. So when I add my adhesive, I won't be sealing the entire thing. I'm only going to put it on the left side and the bottom. So it'll leave an opening for my gift card or my monies or note or whatever you want to insert in there. And it's also going to cover the back of that original tag that you put on the front, so you don't have to see the adhesive. So you can also create it so you can add your card from the top. I think you would need to have a bigger tag on the front though, because the gift card would, this gift card anyway, my little sample would not fit from the top. So once I have my adhesive in place, I'm going to line them up and I will be sticking that down. Now I did have a little too much white at the top, so I did trim my tag down, my inside tag down a little bit. And so this is where we're at right now. You can still put your card inside that pocket. It peeks out from the front. And now I'm going to be sealing my front sheet of fusible plastic on 3 sides. I leave one side open so I can add my contents, my shaker contents. So I will be laying down my metal ruler that comes with my fuse tool. I'm leaving about probably an 1/8 to a 1/16 of an inch on my edge. And I'm going to slowly roll my fuse tool down the side to fuse those 2 pieces together. And then I'm going to turn it, do the bottom. I'm being really careful because obviously the 2 pieces of plastic slide on each other, and I want to keep them nice and lined up. So that's the bottom side, and then I also fuse it on one other side on I think the top. Oh, I did it on the top side and bottom, and I left the side open so I can insert my sequins and glitter. I'm using these very flat small sequins. I think they have coordinating colors to the tag that I chose, so I'll shake some in there. I do end up putting too much and I take some out before sealing it closed. But I also add these flat, large glitter pieces. And again, I put way too much, but I do take some out. And now I'm ready to seal the last edge. Make sure that my card is open. I don't want to seal it to the back of the card. So my card is open and I'm sealing the last side of that pocket. And that's what it looks like so far. Got the nice contents in there, your tag with the sentiment on it. Now I cut out 2 more tags in the same size as the larger tag, and these are going to serve as your message area. I chose, you have to do 2 because you don't want to see the adhesive on the back of either of them. So one serves as your main message area, and then the back covers the tape and also serves as message area if you want to write some more, or you can add your name or your logo or your stamp or whatever you want back there, you know, made by so and so. I line that up to the tag that's on the inside of the card and adhere it down. And now I'm putting adhesive on the back side of the card on the plastic, and I'm going to be adding my other tag. Now you could stop here, but I felt like my back, the back of the card was too flimsy, so I decided to create another shaker pocket on the back. And I'm going to be sealing it from the back side so that that inner tag, you can still write on it. I do add my stamp before adding the other piece of plastic over it. And so here's my other piece, and I'm going to seal that again on 3 sides. Just making sure it's straight and not sliding around. Now that fuse tool gets extremely hot, so whenever you're using something like this, you have to be really careful. You don't want to accidentally burn yourself or your surface, so you have to make sure you have some type of surface that will be heat resistant. You could also add other things in your contents. You could add other elements, die cuts, stars, pretty much almost anything, as long as it's not too bulky, I guess. So once I have my 3 sides fused together, I'm just trimming down the excess plastic, being very careful not to cut my seal. And just making sure it's nice and straight. You could also use a paper trimmer for this. It will cut through that plastic, no problem. Now, before I seal it, I'm going to add the leftover contents from the front because remember I mentioned that I put too much glitter and too many sequins. So I add that to the back, and now I'm going to seal it shut. And now that card is complete. Well, not yet. I do have to add something else. So the tag at the top, it would be nice to add something to it, like a ribbon or an eyelet or something like that. But if I did that, then I wouldn't be able to fit my gift card in there. So again, you could stop here, but I do want to add something to the top of the tag. And I'm going to show you an example of another card that I made. For this one, I did use the eyelet at the top, and I did put it all the way through, so it's through both sides of the card front. So I can't add, you can add some money in there if you wanted to, or no, but you can't really use the gift card in one like this. I will show you an alternative if you decide to put an eyelet and you can't use the pocket for a card. You can create a pocket at the back. So this one, I didn't put another pocket in the back. So I'm going to be adding a pocket now. First I add my stamp. And I had a smaller piece of leftover plastic that I'm going to use here, but ideally I would have wanted to use a larger piece. I just didn't I didn't want to cut into another sheet, so I just used a piece that I have left over from when I cut my previous pieces. And once again, I'm going to be sealing that on 3 sides. And this is going to create a pocket for the gift card. And it would fit perfectly in there. Now, I don't like that the card is loose and it kind of can come out, or it can go all the way to the end of the pocket. So I decide to also seal the edges around the tag. And this way the gift card is going to sit right behind the tag and not swim around that whole space. I'm only sealing the side and the bottom, and that's so you still have access to the card, obviously. And so now that it's sealed, you can see that there's a pocket, and you can put the card right in there. If you had a larger piece, you could probably create a pocket towards the top of the tag. I chose to do it on the side. That would be that card. That card is completed. Now to finish the other card that I was just making, I'm gonna add a little ribbon to the front of the tag as well. But I don't want to take away the access to that pocket where the yellow pattern paper is. So I'm going to actually lift up that pocket, lift up that piece of paper, and I'm going to staple my ribbon in place. And that's going to allow me to still have access to that pocket with the right size. It'll still fit the gift card. See, so there's the pocket. I'm just gonna trim my ribbon. You could also use some twine. I've trimmed my ribbon, and yeah, I can still use the inside pocket. And I love these. I think these came out really, really nice. I also think there are lots of variations to these types of cards. For my next example, I'm going to be using an intricate die over acetate. This is going to be the paper I'm using for this very detailed die. Now, because it's so intricate, it would be really difficult to use glue to adhere this down to a piece of acetate. You can see it's very detailed and very thin. So what I'm gonna do is I grab a piece of double-sided sheets. I got these from scrapbook.com. And what happens is this is basically a large piece of tape. And you can cut it with your die so that it becomes the tape. It's already part of your panel. Sorry about the blurriness here, but I removed the release tape on one side, the release paper on one side of my sheet, and I'm gonna stick it down to my gold mat. And then I'm going to cut that out using my die cutting machine. I've also cut out a frame to add a little bit of thickness to the outside of that die because it is very thin. Now, that intricate die, remember, has adhesive on the back. I just have to remove the release paper just like I would with double-sided tape. First, I'm going to add a little bit of glue to my frame. Here's my piece of acetate. I've chosen this pretty purple and gold piece of pattern paper for my background, and I have a standard A2 size card base. I'm gonna just stick down my background paper to my card base to begin. I'm using double-sided tape for this. And this card is similar to the window shaker, except this is the entire front of the card and not just a smaller window. I'm adding double-sided tape to my gold frame. And now I'm going to place that over my die cut. Tricky here to get it in the right place. It's always good to start at the corner when you have a rectangular or square shape. And this way you can line up one side, which will line up all of the other sides as well. Now I'm removing that release paper from the back of my die cut, and that is now sticky. So I'm going to adhere it onto my piece of acetate, which is very hard to see on camera, but it is there. I'm just lining it up properly on the piece that I have. And smoothing it out nice and even. So now this panel is a piece of acetate with the die cut over it. And now I'm going to add my contents to my background. I have some gold flat sequins and some of the large glitter as well. I'm going to create my well using those same strips of foam tape. And whenever you create a well for a shaker card, you have to make sure that it is sealed really well all the way around. I'm going to remove my release paper. Now usually I would again use my little anti-static tool, that powder, to remove any static or stickiness from the sides of the tape. I don't do that for this because it's large enough that my contents are going to shake no matter what, even if some of them get stuck to the sides of the tape. So I'm going to pour, for this one, I'm going to pour my contents onto my background because it is a large background. So gold sequins, iridescent glitter, and then I also add some large and small white sequins. And now I can add my acetate panel right over the top. Making sure I'm lining it up really well and making sure that it's pressed down really well. And now to decorate the top of my card, I have this vellum butterfly. This is a Vicky Boutin design. And then I have a small sentiment from a sticker pad that I had that I'm going to put on here using some foam tape. And it says best day ever. And that completes that shaker card. And here are all 3 cards that I made in this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it gave you some ideas, some tips, and some inspiration. I hope you guys can come back for my next video. If you like this, please subscribe, hit that like button, and I'll see you next time.